It's Thursday, July 5th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On today's show, we do a deep dive into emergency dispatch and get an elementary education in makerspaces. But let's start with some news you can use. Town Hall has a new neighbor on the green. The Greater Hyannis Chamber of Commerce opened their new visitor center in the kiosk at the top of the town green last week, and Channel 18 was at the ribbon cutting and had a chance to talk to Todd DeLuca, President and CEO, about more opportunities to speak with tourists visiting the area.
So we're going to dedicate this to a good partnership between the Chamber and the town of Barnstable in the future.
Okay,
Love it.
sounds good. All right.
Well, the reason we're here on the town green is because we want to be accessible to residents and visitors. We think that the tourism industry is so vital in our community that the way you make it as strong as it can be is by giving visitors information so they can become customers, so they can take advantage of all the attractions that we have here, but also so they can be advocates. So when they go home, they say, hey, I learned about Hyannis and Barnstable, I did all these great things, and you ought to go and visit. We've been searching for a place to put the visitor center for some time now. And on Cape Cod, it's been a tradition that chambers of commerce provide information to tourists. And in our case, our office is on South Street. So we've struggled to find a spot that is centrally located. And we worked with the town of Barnstable, and they said, hey, how about on the town green? And we thought that was a perfect solution to the problem. So it was really a great partnership with the town of Barnstable to put it right here, front and center. So anybody walking by, visiting INO, can come in and get information. One thing that we're really excited about is we're pre-curating days in all the villages. So if someone comes in and says, hey, I've heard about Osterville, what can I do there? We can hand them a card that says, if you're going to Osterville, here are 6 things you can do to spend time in Osterville for a day. So they arrive in Osterville sort of knowing what it is they want to do. And we're creating one of those for each of the villages. We're also creating a rainy day activity guide for folks who are coming by and saying, you know, it's raining, I can't go to the beach today, what can I do around town? And that would include all of our museums, all of our attractions, places to shop, places to eat, some place to grab a drink on a patio and just relax. So about anything. In addition to that, we have public transportation information, we have maps of the street that were created by High Arts in the bid, so a lot of different things are available to a visitor that stops by. We're going to operate 7 days a week between Memorial Day and Columbus Day, so we'll be open from 10 to 4 every day and on Sunday from 12 to 4.
Our own Barnstable lifeguards are credited with saving a young girl's life on Tuesday at Coville's Beach. Patty Machado, Director of Leisure Services, says their fast response is responsible for them saving her lives. Where does your call go when you call 911? Who are the operators who answer your call? We take a deep dive into emergency dispatch with Lieutenant Mark Cabral, who oversees this important department for the Barnstable Police. He helps us understand how merging the police and Hyannis Fire Dispatch will help the community. With me today, Lieutenant Mark Cabral, who is the supervisor for dispatch at Barnstable Police Department. We are changing over to a new system combined with Hyannis Fire. Mark, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Paula.
So this is a big deal. Lots of moving parts, as we said. So give us just a little overview of what the role of dispatch is in fire and police.
So in the first responder world, the dispatcher is really almost like the pre-first responder. They're not just taking the phone call and sending a car. They're asking a lot of important questions that dial in the resources that we need to send to that call so that we can get the best care or the best police response as quick as possible. So it really has changed from 20, 30 years ago or even 10 years ago where it just might have been a police officer answering the phone and sending the guys out or a firefighter answering the phone. It's really now a profession where the people that work in there are highly trained professionals, and a lot goes into the first day they take that call and get those resources out.
Okay, so right now you're currently changing or adding staff. Tell us a little bit about how you're staffing this dispatch center.
Okay, so on a day-to-day basis at the police department, and just leaving the merger out of it for a minute with Hyannis Fire, we typically have 3 police officers or dispatchers that work during the day shift, 3 during the evening shift, and at least 2 during the midnight shift hours. So that would be just strictly the person manning each console. We also have a supervisor that manages the station that's in close contact with them as well and can help out in there as well. Okay. So the room is staffed pretty heavily for the call volume that we end up doing. Okay,
and these are professional people. They go through training and some other kind of things to do to become this dispatcher. Like you said, it's just not somebody sitting in a chair answering the phone and say, okay, we'll send a car.
Absolutely. So our new program that we just put in place, it's basically we're moving to a full professional civilian dispatch with help from the police when needed and police oversight. But the training involved now, these new dispatchers that we just put on went to a 5-week academy up in Middleborough that the state puts on. Okay. So there they get most of the basics that they need. They come home, do another 2 weeks, what we call in-house, where they're getting up on CPR and some emergency medical dispatch certifications. And then after that, they finally hit the desk and they're in a one-on-one training anywhere from like 4 to 8 weeks before they're really all the way on their own. So it's about, somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 months, or could be a little less or a little longer depending on the progress. Yeah.
What are some of the skills that these dispatchers need to perform this job?
It's kind of a tough one when you're doing like an interview to determine who's going to be really great at it. But we're finding that a lot of the younger millennials that are growing up managing their phone and 10 apps at once and doing school and listening to their folks are just quick. And that quickness and just having really good common sense and a good basic high school or college education, you put it all together, and some of the best dispatchers are hard to really pick out until they get there.
Really? Yeah. That's interesting. What are some of the kinds of the equipment that you're using? You mentioned the apps as a millennial, but this is kind of high level now. I mean, you're not putting up a map on a paper map and going, all right, well, here's old stage and that kind of stuff. They're using GIS and everything?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have the latest next-gen 911 system, which I think just about all the state has rolled it out at this point for all the piece apps. But the GIS mapping that you mentioned is part of that. So when that map comes up, we've got everything now. We've got house numbers, we've got satellite imagery of the homes, and it's the latest stuff available. So that's just 2 of the 7 monitors that each unit is managing at that point. That's directly in front of them. So just the 911 stuff, you got 2 monitors, its own system. That's all managed by the state. Then we have our in-house system, which is 4 different monitors. You can put up to like maybe a dozen different actual windows that a person would be using during a routine shift. And then off to the side, we're now on a fully up-to-date computerized radio system as well. So all this stuff has come about. We did a renovation over the winter, and took us literally from some 1980s era equipment that was still in that room to the latest and greatest stuff available.
Okay, so now we're ready. Let's talk merger. So fire is going to come into the police center dispatch.
Yes.
How did that come about?
It's really like a shotgun wedding, the way this happened. It wasn't really planned out, and something this big, you probably would have looked at it and said, hey, in the next like 3 to 5, we want to do this. But really what happened was with us pushing to get that professionalized staff and the new fire chief over at Hyannis Fire, Chief Burke, coming in and kind of coming in on the late end of that building construction. Chief McDonald at the time, Chief Burke, myself, and now Chief Sonneman, a few of us all got together and looked at it and said, hey, we think we can do this within the budget year, which is like crazy, due to all the different things that were already in place. The renovation that I was managing was already in progress. The civilian staff had already been approved and was being hired. And then he's looking at it over on his end going, well, all right, we can build a whole dispatch center in our place, but that might be tough to do that and then merge 2 years from now. You're kind of wasting some resources. So we got everything together. We shared some equipment, and they helped us to add 3 more full-time dispatchers to our staff. That allowed us to increase those numbers I mentioned earlier, where we'll now have like 4 on the day shift, 4 on the evenings, and we'll run 3 on midnights.
Wow.
So we're really heavily staffed, and that's where, if you look at it, where the savings come in. We now have, in the past, or as it is today, as we speak, you have one dispatcher at the fire department, and it's a fireman who just may happen to get the desk that day. If he runs into trouble or needs help, he may be the only one there. When we take over, there'll be 4 people and a supervisor all ready to help when you have those big incidents. So you're getting a ton more staff into the room, able to handle all those bigger incidents.
Right. And some of the incidents that happen, both of you guys respond anyways. So
Absolutely.
by combining this, does that help that ability to work together?
Absolutely. We took a big step back in December, and we cut completely out of the 911 process the step where when you called in on a wireless phone, you would have landed in Middleborough. Okay, that's kind of a big step, and it was a bit of a time waster. So Barnstable PD stepped up and said, we want to be a wireless direct center, which we are now as of December, and that meant us taking on upwards of 11,000 more phone calls. Literally, the phone ring 11,000 more times a year, and us having to ferret out those calls. So now, if you pick up your iPhone, and even if you couldn't talk and you had to hit your emergency 911 button on your phone, the phone rings right into the Barnstable Police Department. And then once we're fully online with this merger, if we were to have a medical emergency right here in this room, I'd make that one call, and we would have that ambulance being dispatched probably within 30 seconds of that phone ringing. So
wow.
we are shaving literally minutes between dropping that Middleborough out of that and then dropping the transfers over to the Hyannis Fire Department out of it and doing it all right out of one room.
Right. Which can save lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Is it a hard switch getting this rollover? I mean, you just came off a night shift. You're looking pretty fresh here, Mark. But I would imagine as supervisor, there's, like you said, a lot of moving parts. Was it hard?
Absolutely. A lot of planning went into this. So it's like for the renovation, it was probably about 12 months of planning, and then we moved into a temporary room. We got all that stuff going. So now most of the software hardware is on the Hyannis Fire side of it, and then it's just joining it in at our end. So we're hoping to go live Monday. With the merger and handling everything, but we still have, even a few days away, we still have some radio issues to work out and some phone issues. So if we have to delay it a couple days, no big deal. It's not the end of the world. We want to make sure we have it right. And then when we do flip that switch, it's literally, we'll keep it staffed on both ends, and we'll do some testing all throughout the day shift. But really, it will be in the morning the old way and in the afternoon the new way. Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Will a resident know that this switch has happened? I mean, in the past, we've gotten that kind of like little creepy recording. Hi, you've reached the Barnstable Police Department. You're going to be recorded and that kind of stuff. Will they know that they've called one central place?
Well, if you dial 911, it's streamlined we actually have a recorded greeting. So if you called and I happen to be sitting at that desk, it would just say 911, this line is recorded, where is your emergency?
Okay.
There is no, this is the Barnstable Police, or we're answering for Hyannis Fire. It's just that one question. And if someone's in distress and they could only say 3 words, the most important thing, and it'll be good for your people that are watching, is where they are.
Okay.
If we know what's wrong, that's helpful too, but if it's literally an intruder's in the home, or they're having chest pain and they're down to just a couple of breaths, knowing where they are is the most important thing that we're gonna want from them. That's why we open with that question.
Okay, so where are you is the most important question.
Absolutely. Yep.
And then let's just come back to cell phones just for a second. As more people are losing their landline, they're not renewing it for whatever reason. The phone itself, is that going to be part of this mix where you'll be able to pick up that coordinates of the phone where somebody is if they can't tell you where they are?
Absolutely. The newest next-gen 911 system that we're on now is pretty accurate, but it has a lot of variations. It varies with carrier, it varies with weather, it varies with, I would imagine us being in the basement here, a lot different than if we were outside. So when we were testing that, we would call 911 right in the dispatch center itself, and it would give us, just like if anyone's ever used the Find My iPhone app, it gives you like a circle.
Sure.
And on ours, it's much more enhanced. It'll say the accuracy is 92% that the person is within 48 meters of this dot. So we'll know. And then I walk outside of the police station in the front parking lot, and that shrinks right down to 6 meters. So we don't want people to depend on that, knowing where they are, but the technology is very, very good that in good conditions, we're generally going to know right where they are so that we can send help very quickly.
You excited to have the project come to completion?
Yeah, it's nice. If hardware-wise in the room, we've come a long way, and then now the end result being that someone can dial on their phone 911 on a cell phone and have an ambulance going as quick as possible is really the ultimate goal. And there is no quicker service anywhere in Massachusetts. If you're within the town of Barnstable, and especially within the village of Hyannis, it's one-stop shopping. You're talking to one person. In the past, go back 6 months, and you called right now, you might talk to someone in Middleborough, then you might talk to me, then I'd kick you over to Hyannis Fire, and then it would get kicked back to me, and I might give you the CPR instructions, a police officer at the Barnstable Police Department. So it really wasn't a great system. And now, this is as good as it gets in this state, and we're doing it right here.
Fantastic work, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Thank you. Once a dream drawn on paper with crayon, the Centerville Makerspace is now a STEAM stop in education. Join us as we explore the new classroom designed to innovate educational concepts in science, technology, engineering, art, and math.
This fall, Matt Shifley, the principal of this building, had a meeting with myself, Beth Ann Orr, and our Gateway personnel as well to talk about his vision for this space. So he'd heard of makerspaces, he included it in his school improvement plan, wasn't really sure what that was going to look like. And so he and I had worked together previously. I was in his building, and he said to me, I want to turn this into a makerspace, what do you think? And we walked into this space, and it was kind of a storage classroom, if you would, hadn't been used. So everything under the sun was in here, couldn't see the walls, and needed a little TLC. And I looked at it, and I just started walking around, and in my brain I started to envision what I thought it might look like. Maker spaces were somewhat new to me, so I just dug deep into research, found some great resources, and drew a very quick crayon drawing. Brought it into him and transformed into what you see now.
So I think the first step with the makerspace right now is to get our children in and see what ideas our students come up with. And my hope would be that they would be communicating in the regular classroom with their teachers after their experiences here in the makerspace, and maybe generate some ideas that the teachers could bounce off of myself or Mrs. White, our technology educator. And you know, we've got a nice space in here where we have just behind you a wall that says things I'd like to learn and make or do. And I'm one of the things that we learned, Kim and I, when we did our visits to some of the maker spaces in the area, was that the children actually become the driving force, and the adults found that the ideas that they had weren't necessarily the direction that the children wanted to go. And what the common theme that we heard in our research was don't lose sight of what children want to do and learn, and you're going to go further with it because the motivation's going to be there for them to explore their ideas. So I'm hoping that's the chain that will, you know, the chain of events that will occur and help us make this space something that the children really want to be a part of.
Initially, we had applied to the Barnstable Education Foundation for a grant, and that intent of those monies was to try to change the cosmetic look, if you would, to make it look not like a traditional classroom. So pretty much for paint and some repairs generally to the walls and a couple other areas of the room. And as we were initiating that process, we were approached and offered the opportunity to speak to the Cobb Fund. And so we did a presentation to Cobb Fund, and they very generously gave us a $10,000 grant to enable us to really transform this space into what you see now.
So right now, that's kind of my next steps as I'm a big idea person. So when this started, I actually thought this would be up and running, in February, you know, and like any, say, home improvement project, there's steps that have to go along the way. And one of my strengths is I tend to have the big idea, and Mrs. White is absolutely incredible at the details. So I have to give her props for this. So our next steps, I am looking to start developing outside relationships within the community. It's one of the strategic objectives of the district is to develop outside partnerships. I'm currently reaching out to Cape Cod Community College. I would love to get in touch with some of the other makerspaces in the area and see if there's resources that they have that can support some of the ideas that our students are generating. I think it's really exciting to have a makerspace at this area because there's not a lot in the elementary level right now, so we're kind of on the pioneering end, I feel like, with children this age. So it'll be very interesting to see the shape and direction it goes. But outside partnerships, I think, are going to be an important part. I would love to see parents, with electronics experience, because we've got some nice electricity stuff and circuitry stuff that we can use here. We've got the sewing center, and I think, there's got to be people out there who would love to share their talents and support children in learning how to sew and learning how to make things from that perspective. And I know at Cape Cod Community College we have a robotics program that is somewhat tied to this school, because when we had 4th grade here, I had developed a relationship with Mr. Rick Bashara, who's over there teaching robotics, and that started over here at Centerville with him and I running some robotics when we had some older children here. So I'm looking forward to developing those next relationships with people.
Students are going to come here and they're going to struggle with problems. It's a mindset shift, and that's going to be our biggest challenge. It's not a space where an entire class comes and replicates a project. It's a space where students come in smaller groups, work collaboratively, teachers identify a problem, ask them some questions, allow the students to struggle through that problem-solving philosophy, try something with a prototype, figure out what doesn't work, fix it, and then come up with their end product. All of these areas encourage collaboration. So a student could come and work independently, of course, but more importantly is that collaborative feeling. When you go into the real world, very rarely are you isolated in a job. You have to learn to work with people. You have to learn to compromise. You have deadlines. So this mindset and this space has been designed to foster and encourage that.
Here's a look at our community calendar. The 4th annual Cape Cod Hydrangea Festival will take place July 6th through the 15th this year. The Cape Cod Hydrangea Festival is an annual celebration of the region's blue, pink, and white signature flowers and everything gardens on Cape Cod. This 10-day festival's main attractions are the daily tours of private gardens, each designed and maintained by the individual homeowners and carrying a unique charm. You are sure to enjoy such eclectic spaces, not to mention the good feeling of supporting a variety of local nonprofits. Gardens are only one part of the festival. Enjoy workshops and lectures presented by leading international horticulturists. Discover promotions at participating nurseries and home centers. Take a class to learn proper hydrangea pruning techniques, or even watch a painting demonstration by renowned Cape Cod artists both in studio and in the gardens themselves. More information on the kickoff event tonight at Cape Cod Beer or the workshops and gardens can be found at www.capehydrangeafest.com. Comments, suggestions, accolades, connect with us on Facebook, email us, or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works for you. I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.